Hello friends, I'm happy to see you on our haute couture embroidery channel, and today we will make a new embroidery sample, and it is rather interesting and very beautiful sample because we will do a part of the embroidery from the dress made by the Givenchy fashion house, and it was part of the collection of 1960 to 1963. And as you know, Hubert de Givenchy, he was the favorite fashion designer of the Audrey Hepburn. So I think this dress is also remarkable just because it was done by a person who was the favorite designer of the Audrey Hepburn. As you can see, dress is a clear example of the fashion of the 60s, and it is fully decorated with raffia, and it is really looks like it is fully woven from the raffia, but in reality of course not. It is embroidered. It has the fabric underneath, and it comes full embroidery on the whole dress. About the materials that we will use. Since, as I told, the dress is fully embroidered with raffia, we will use tons of raffia ribbons, and it will be about 10 or 15 meters of gold raffia and also 5-6 meters of the red and blue one. Also we will use green floss threads, and we'll add a little glimpse of seed beads in pink and blue color, and we'll add a little bit of tubes to show the beauty of the flowers. And also some elements will be done with the gold metallic thread, and as you can understand, since we will do embroidery with the raffia, and raffia is a ribbon, we will do whole embroidery only with the needle. So there will be not a single piece of aluminum hook, there will be only the needle, and we will need two types of needles: needles for the raffia, needles for the ribbons, and needle for the beads, because we will have to sew on our tiny beads. And as usual, our embroidery will be done in silk organza by the help of our embroidery frame. And while making embroidery, we will talk today about the Givenchy fashion house. We will learn how it was established, what period it worked, with what things it was famous, and who was favorite clients of this fashion house, and all this history of fashion that I guess you also like to hear in our embroidery lessons. Let's start talking about the childhood of the person who created this fashion house, Hubert de Givenchy. He was born in France in 1927, and he was born in a very wealthy family, and it was not only the wealthy, it was aristocratic family. His maternal grandfather, he was an artist, and he was a rather famous artist. His father, he was a war pilot, and unfortunately he died during the war. And the boy was raised by his mother and by his paternal grandmother. And his grandmother, she was a person who was influenced the decision of Hubert de Givenchy about choosing his profession, because she was very fond of handmade things. She was fond of knitting, sewing, doing embroideries, and she was asking a boy to help her to hold her materials, to do some small stitches. And through this home handwork, a boy got acquainted with the world of, let's say, the fashion, with embroideries, with knitting, with fabrics. And he was, at this moment, he started to like it, and at this moment he started to be interested in it. When he was 10 years, his mother took him to Paris to attend the exhibition dedicated to the fashion, art, and technological success of the country. And there was a pavilion dedicated to the fashion, where a young boy could see different examples of clothes and fashion styles that were presented by about, I think, 37 fashion houses at that time. And he was so much impressed with it that when he came back home, the first thing he started doing, he took his sketchbook, pencil, and he started to make sketches of the dresses that he was imagining, and that he actually seen there, but also after that he started to imagine the dresses. And from this moment he understood that he would like to become a person who runs a fashion house and who wants to create beautiful dresses. He spent some time living with this idea to become a fashion designer, and when the Second World War finished and Paris started to return back to the normal life, Robert de Givenchy, he moved to the Paris, and he entered into the fashion school where he started to learn fashion and drawing, and he also started to become an apprentice in the Jacques Fat fashion house. During the time of his studies and during the time of his apprenticeship, he changed different fashion houses where he worked as apprentice, as assistant to the head of the fashion house, where he learned lots of different things and new things about the fashion world, where he got acquainted with different people, and also he managed to get acquainted with movie stars of that period. For example, when he was an apprentice in Eva Schiaparelli's fashion house, he was, let's say, maybe befriended with such people as USA American stars, with Marlene Dietrich, with other fashion famous people. And from that period of his apprenticeship, he got this information: how to run the house, how to work with famous clients, how to establish his own fashion house. And in age of 25, in 1952, he opened his own fashion house, and he was, I guess, the only person, or maybe among the very little amount of people, who opened this house on his own money. His family gave him that money to establish a fashion house, even though they were against his idea of being a fashion designer. But still, if he wanted, they decided to support him, at least with the money. But still, even though he had some money, he understood that he could not rely all time on his relatives, and for his first collection he used not very expensive fabrics, not very expensive accessories, but he decided to stress upon the silhouette, upon the look, and upon the idea. And it was the goal thing, because exactly from his first collection he became famous, and people started to dream about his dresses and about his work. At the same period, when his first collection launched, Hubert de Givenchy got acquainted with another very famous fashion designer, Cristobal Balenciaga, and he became his, let's say, apprentice, even though he had his own fashion house. Balenciaga was well known for his structural view to the dress, and he was a person who cared a lot about pattern making and creating the patterns of the dresses, like the architectural style. I even read from the diary of a person who lived the period of Balenciaga's time, and he wrote that he could, for example, stop a person on the street who wears some interesting piece of clothes, ask him to undress and to see how, for example, the jacket was sewn, or how the decorations was done. So he was crazy about this exact structural pattern making. And Hubert de Givenchy, he was learning about all the things, and he after that told that the period of his friendship with Balenciaga was the period when he gained really lots of different information, and he got lots of experience for his work. Also, the same time he got acquainted with Audrey Hepburn, a person who became his muse in the future. And when he knew that an actress from USA with the surname Hepburn asked for a visit, he was sure that it is a famous Catherine Hepburn, and when he had seen another person, at that time it was Audrey Hepburn, who was not well known at all, she was just started her acting career, he was very upset. And when she said that she is looking for a dress for her new coming film Sabrina, he understood that he is not going to make any special dresses for her because she is not a well-known person and he don't have much time for making dress, and he allowed her to choose the dresses she would like from his new collection. And in 1954, when Sabrina appeared on cinema screens, lots of dresses from that film, they were actually borrowed from the Givenchy collection. And in 1955, this film won an Oscar exactly for the costumes. And the funny thing that since Givenchy he was not named in a movie, no one knew that it was his dresses. And only Audrey, she told from the scene that this was Givenchy dresses, and she was really felt so sorry about this, and she kept asking for excuse from him, but he was not very much upset because exactly after this film he got so many clients that actually he barely could work with because there were really so many of them, and he was very famous and popular at that time, so he was not cared much about the Oscar statuette for the costume. He was thinking about his success in France and gaining more interesting and popular clients. Starting from this friendship between Audrey Hepburn and Givenchy, we can talk about the birth of such thing as the brand ambassador. As you know, the brand ambassador is a person who appears in dresses or clothes of a special designer whom she advertise, and with whom maybe she has he has good relationship, and people usually consider this person as a part of this exact fashion house. So Audrey Hepburn was such kind of a dress ambassador for the Givenchy fashion house because she was a person who was very fond of wearing his dresses, and she did it very frequently, and they had a really very huge friendship, and they were friends till the death did them apart, we can say like this. Another client who was very famous and who loved a lot Givenchy dresses was Jacqueline Kennedy, and she was a person who were not allowed to wear actually French designers while her husband was an US president, but it was told, I'm not sure about this, maybe it's a rumor, but still it was told that his dresses were secretly delivered to her in USA, and Givenchy labels were removed from the dresses so people could not understand whose dress she is wearing, so they thought that maybe it is American designers. But when she and her husband they went with an official visit to France while de Gaulle was a president there, Jacqueline Kennedy, she was wearing the Givenchy evening dress. It is a silk dress with a silk summer coat with lots of embroidery, and she decided to take his dress as a representative of her love to France, and she was really in love with France because her ancestors were from France, and she also used to study in France. And also it was told that in the house of Givenchy there were a dummy made exactly by the measures of Jacqueline Kennedy, and all the dresses that were chosen by her, they first were made on the dummy exactly on her measures, and after that secretly sent to the United States. I'm not sure about is it true or not, but at least I heard about such things a lot. So even though Givenchy usually described as a person who did very posh and luxurious evening dresses, he was also a person who wants to create dresses not only beautiful but comfortable and easy to wear and easy to use for a woman. He was a person who first announced ready-to-wear fashion line for the haute couture fashion houses, and he wanted to make luxurious things for a bigger amount of women. Also, he was a person who created, at the end of 50s, who created the dress without a waist, some kind of a cotton dress, and maybe it was the first birds of the 60s. Then fashion changed, and such structural dresses like they were during Dior period and 50s period, they were normal. In 60s they disappeared. And also such well-known dress that we used to wear now, and it's famous now, dress chaise, also appeared, and it was also created and invented by Givenchy. The only thing that such plain dress he used to make from very expensive fabrics, and he used to add very expensive and beautiful embroidery to show the simple construction of the dress, but the beauty of the fabric that it was made from. So Givenchy, he ruled his fashion house till late 80s, and he was rather popular all the time while he was working in his fashion house. But at the end of 80s he decided to sell it because he was feeling like he got tired, and the only thing that he was asking from the person to whom he was selling his fashion house, that he will kept his position of a fashion director of his fashion house for 7 years, and after that 7 years will pass, he will leave his place completely and will start living life of a peasant, of a normal person. And he fulfilled his wish. He worked for 7 years, and in early 90s he really lost interest in the fashion because his muse died. Audrey Hepburn died from a cancer, and as I told, they were really great friends, and they kept very a strong relationship to each other for the whole life, because he was a person who did dresses for her on all her key life things, on all her weddings, on the birth of her son, and all her divorces he spent with her. And some people even were talking that they were not only friends, but they were something more, that in reality they were really just only friends. They just had such really great and warm relationship with each other. So when Givenchy, he left his place, after that John Galliano came to his side, and he ruled fashion house for 5 years. And he is at the same time he was a fashion director of the Dior fashion house, and he did fashion lines for both fashion houses, and they were rather interesting and popular. But after that he chose Dior, of course, and worked there for a long time. And also for some time Alexander McQueen, a new and young fashion designer from London, he was a person who ruled Givenchy fashion house for some period. And the remarkable thing is that if John Galliano's collections were acknowledged and right from the start, and he was considered as a very clever and interesting designer, but for Alexander McQueen it was really a blast for a few years, because he could not find his own point of fashion, his point of view, and he was trying to copy different collections. So we can tell that he was looking for himself, and the Givenchy fashion house directors, they were really shocked when they understood that they decided to choose a person, Alexander McQueen, and he is not bringing money to them at all. And such thing happened for a few years, till the moment when McQueen really exactly found what he wanted, started to create interesting collections, and Givenchy things started to become better and better. So it shows for us that not all the fashion designers became famous and interesting exactly from the start. They also had some negative parts of life. And for our Hubert de Givenchy, when he left his fashion house, he went to live in his chateau that he bought in France. He bought it in, if I'm not mistaken, in 1970s. It's a really real chateau that were built in 17th century, but in the middle of 20th century it was nearly ruined. And Hubert de Givenchy, he decided to restore it, and he spent lots of money on restoring this chateau. He remade garden there, and he was very fond of that garden to spend time. And also chateau inside was also rebuilt and remade, and it was really an interesting piece of art. And lots of French architectural magazines and furniture magazines, they were fond of making fashion shooting inside this chateau. So it was also very, very famous. And in 1990s, if I'm not mistaken, UNESCO also included this chateau into their list of remarkable places, and that means that this chateau was accepted as a human heritage. But still being retired and living in his chateau, Hubert de Givenchy, he was not passing time in laziness and doing nothing. He actually worked. He wrote lots of books about Audrey Hepburn, and he made a very beautiful and colorful album with sketches and pictures of dresses that he made for her, and sketches that he was proposing her as a dress, but was not chosen but for her. Also, he made few exhibitions dedicated to Audrey Hepburn at Hubert de Givenchy himself also. And there were also some exhibitions established by French government with which he helped them, and he issued stamps, post stamps, also dedicated to him and to his fashion house and his work in haute couture culture and for French culture also. So he was actually a person who really lived a long life, a very interesting life, full of different expectations and full of different deeds and desires. And he died at the age of 93, if I'm not mistaken, in 2018 at his flat in France, in Paris, in Neuilly-sur-Seine. And we can see that he lived really a long life, and I think he died being a very happy person, even though he was not married. And the funny thing that his unmarried status, it made and created lots of questions about this. Why he was not married? Was it Audrey Hepburn because he was not married, or maybe he was a person who preferred his own sex, not the women but the men? But still, it still kept in a secret because no one knew about this. The only thing that Hubert de Givenchy, he told himself a story that in 80s he was in love and he had a huge and rather painful love affair with a woman who worked in his fashion house as a secretary. But unfortunately, even though they had a really huge affection towards each other, they still decided to split up, and this love affair turned into nothing. And after that, there was also no information about any attractions, whether to women or to the men, except his huge friendship with Audrey Hepburn. So this is a story of simple, well, it's difficult to say, but simple of course, but still, let's say it about the simple son from the aristocratic family who turned into an icon person, into the very well-known couturier, a person who made a huge beads for French fashion, and a person whom we all love and whom we all pay respect. And so we are done with our embroidery sample. It really makes sound. It's looking as if you made it from a real straw, and it sounds like it's real straw, but in reality it's made of raffia, and it really looks very, very beautiful. For those who want to create same embroidery sample as we did, and who don't want to care about looking for the materials that we have used, I can offer you our online tutorial where we will tell you how to make it on a normal speed, not the same quick speed as you have seen here, but on a normal speed with all the instructions and all the help from us. And also you will get all the needed materials if you want to have these materials, or you will get a list of the materials with the links where you can purchase them depending on the color that you want to use in this embroidery. I really hope you like this tutorial, and I hope you like the story about the bird Givenchy, and I hope that you will come to our other tutorials. For those who don't want to miss any new information, any new video, I advise you to subscribe to our channel. Push the like button because we appreciate it a lot, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask them under the video. I will be happy to answer on all your questions. Also, all the links to our tutorials, material boxes, and other things that we keep telling here in this video, I will leave under this video, so feel free to check and place an order in case you will need it. See you, bye bye.